annual Toy Safety Report, Trouble in Toyland. The message today is clear. We must protect our youngest consumers from unsafe toys. Parents and caregivers should watch out for common hazards when shopping for toys. Over the last 30 years, our report has led to at least 150 recalls and other actions to get dangerous toys off store shelves. Sadly, our researchers once again found potentially unsafe toys this year on store shelves. First, we're going to talk about slime. In recent years, slime has become a popular toy for kids to play with and mold into different forms. Unfortunately, our test results showed 6 popular slimes to contain toxic levels of boron. This is likely in the form of borax, which is an ingredient found in many slimes. We found up to 15 times the European Union limit. So why is this a problem? When ingested, boron in moderate amounts can cause nausea, vomiting, and long-term reproductive health issues. With just 5 grams, boron can be fatal for a child. A number of countries have taken action. Canada, the European Union, Jordan, other countries have all taken action, but in the United States, there is no limit for boron in children's products. Without a warning label, parents are unaware of the potential dangers of popular slime toys in their homes. That's why we're calling on policymakers to require labeling for children's products with high concentrations of boron. And we also want them to investigate what limits should be set. In the meantime, we're calling on parents to watch kids carefully when they're playing with slime and to call poison control if ingested. Now, while some hazards may be hidden beneath the surface of a toy, the others are the toy itself, such as a balloon or small parts which can cause choking. We looked at 5 search pages for latex balloons sold on Amazon and found no choking hazard labels for 87% of the balloons sold. This means that someone might allow a child under the age of 8 to play with an uninflated balloon who would then accidentally inhale it and choke on it. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says that from 2001 to 2016, balloons accounted for about 40% of all toy-related choking fatalities reported to them. In fact, balloons are responsible for more childhood suffocation-related deaths than any other product. You know, Amazon is one of the world's largest sellers, and it should make sure that all products, whether it directly sells them or not, have the legally required labels to make sure that not one single kid suffocates on one of these balloons. The third topic in our report is excessively noisy toys. And so what's the problem with excessively noisy toys? They can cause hearing loss, which affects a child's ability to learn grammar, vocabulary, and other aspects of verbal communication. We found this toy plane, which our audio tests indicate may make enough noise to cause hearing damage. Allow me to demonstrate. So imagine a kid playing with that, putting it up to their ear. This is a potential problem that can cause hearing damage. Lastly, we want to talk about the growing market that we've been seeing for smart toys, which are connected to the internet in order to provide additional functions, such as artificial intelligence-based interaction and response. The problem with these toys is that along the way, many of them are collecting data on your child, sharing it with others, and potentially violating the privacy of your child. Just last year, the FBI issued a stark warning that many of these features may put the safety and privacy of children at risk because of the large amounts of personal information that may be unwittingly disclosed. Our partners at the Mozilla Foundation found that the Wonder Workshop Dash robot may share user data with third parties. Parents should evaluate the risk of these smart toys, what they know about your child, who they're sharing it with, how that information may be used, how it might pose a security risk. Progress has been made over the last 10 years in getting dangerous and toxic toys off store shelves. But it's clear that more work has to be done. It's clear that old hazards lurk and that new ones are cropping up. Nobody should have to ruin the joy of a child opening a new present just to run it through a battery of tests to make sure that it's safe enough to play with. But when you do have choking hazards and toxics and privacy issues, it's clear that more work does have to be done. In the meantime, if you are giving a toy to a child this holiday season, you can check out all of our tips at toysafetytips.org. You can learn about the toys that we discussed today and also learn how to evaluate for common hazards in the marketplace. Now I'd like to turn it over to Rachel Weintraub at the Consumer Federation of America. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm Rachel Weintraub, Legislative Director and General Counsel with Consumer Federation of America. Consumer Federation of America is a nonprofit association of over 250 organizations that was formed in 1968 to advance the consumer interests through education, advocacy, and research. CFA is proud to stand with U.S. PIRG today in releasing this report, Trouble in Toyland. This year's findings highlight that yet again, hidden hazards continue to pose risks to children. We congratulate PIRG on this 33rd year of providing consumers with important information about how to avoid unsafe toys and find the right toys for their children on their lists. The Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, which passed in 2008, gave new authority to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission to protect children from unsafe products generally and toys in particular. Mandatory toy standards, lower lead limits, independent third-party testing, increased port inspections, stop more dangerous toys than ever from reaching toy shelves in the United States. The Cpsia created saferproducts.gov, an online database where consumers can report information and research about toys they own or are considered purchasing. The Cpsia also requires that consumers purchasing toys online see the same relevant safety warnings that they would see if they were shopping in a brick-and-mortar store. Parents and all consumers should continue to carefully research and select the safest and most appropriate gifts for the children on their toy and gift wish lists. Manufacturers should ensure that they comply with the law. Continued Cpsc enforcement, adequate funding, and action is necessary to further protect our nation's children. The Cpsc must rigorously conduct recalls to get potentially hazard products off of store shelves, off of online sites, out of people's homes, and out of our children's toy boxes. The Cpsc should be at the forefront of child safety and should take early, effective, and decisive action to protect children from hazards posed by toys. The Cpsc must also levy meaningful civil penalties to deter a lack of compliance and violations with the law. Parents and others can make toys safer by reporting hazards to saferproducts.gov and by looking at saferproducts.gov before they purchase a product. Consumers should also check to make sure that the products they own or those they wish to purchase have not been previously recalled. PIRG's report found problems with compliance with the Cpsia's provision that require choke hazard warnings online. PIRG found balloons, 87% of what they found looking at a number of source pages, with no choking hazard warnings at all. which is a violation of the Cpsia. As Mike mentioned, balloons are a leading choke hazard, and 2 children died from choking on balloons in 2015 and 2016. It's critical that no matter where a person shops, whether online or in a store, that they see the same required choke hazard warning to inform their purchasing decision. The Cpsa sought to make that, to not put at a disadvantage if they are not in a store. Especially with the growth of online toy sales, it is imperative that every online retailer take this provision seriously and comply with the law, and the Cpsc must work to make sure that every online retailer is complying with this provision. The Cpsc recently released their annual toy data for 2017. Cpsc identified that 13 from toys in 2018 injuries serious enough to require emergency room treatment. Cpsc recalled toys in 2018. This is down from 28 toys recalled in 2017. Of the recall when there were 172 toys recalled. In fiscal year 2018, the Cpsc seized more than 750,000 toys at U.S. ports for violating toy safety standards. This is a slight increase from the previous year. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol prevented these toys from entering the U.S. It is critical work that must continue. Hidden hazards could be lurking in your homes. It's not pose harm. Serious health consequences from ingestion or exposure. This year's Trouble in Toyland found that some popular products, slime, which I know is prolific in my personal home, contain high levels of taken action. The European Union of born product. Canada, the Cpsc depends on community been in effect for the warning to be explicit and clear. And the point is, this online experience is putting the experience in a store, and the warning and make the same impact to a consumer, considering whether that toy is the right toy.
According to following the rules, did stores like Target they have these things?
I'm actually not sure, and I know that we many different products this year in a variety of settings, you know, in brick and mortar as well as online. The we
Age appropriateness of toys, they consider all different factors that go into the age labeling of a product, and then once that determination is made, then that triggers different legal requirements.
And you're saying that those legal requirements were not met even in cases of the Hatchimals and the LOL toys?
For the online retailing, yes, that the hazard warnings required for products that contain small parts when the product is age graded for an older child, that warning label was not clear and conspicuous, which is what is required by the statute.
I would like to add to that in fact one of the things that we're calling for the Consumer Product Safety Commission to look into this and determine whether or not in fact these online retailers are violating the law by not having the legally required labels.
How hard could it be to put that warning online for the product, and why aren't they doing it?
I agree with you. It's not hard at all. We're talking about the world's largest, you know, some of the world's largest sellers. They absolutely should do whatever it takes to make sure that their kids are safe. I can't speak to why they're not doing it.
The other question I have is about the slime. If it's banned or tightly controlled in Europe and Canada, why isn't the U.S. being more enforcement?
I don't know why not, but I absolutely agree with you that we should have limits in the United States on children's products with high concentrations of boron. Again, we're talking about a toxin here where if you ingest it in moderate amounts can cause vomiting, nausea, and long-term reproductive health issues. And again, we're talking about, you know, there are countries, a number of countries that have actually taken action, and that does include Canada. It includes the European Union, Jordan, and a host of other countries as well.
Speaking of the EU standard that you referenced, should regulations on the boron in this kind of slime in the U.S. be the same as EU standards? Is that what you're saying?
So that's not exactly what we're necessarily saying. There's two things that we're calling for. We want the Consumer Product Safety Commission to investigate what limits should be set. We want policymakers to also require some kind of labeling for children's products with high concentrations of boron, but we do believe it's up to them to investigate to determine what those limits should be set at.
And have you tested all the slime made by Kangaroo?
So I don't know if we tested all of the slime that's available out there for Kangaroo. I know that we tested a number of different slimes out in the marketplace, and we found 6 that had high concentrations or toxic levels of boron.
So, and you said this year you tested 40 products overall?
40 products overall, and again, I mean, that's out of the thousands of toys that are out there. And out of the 40, we found 15 with some kind of issue. And so what this really shows is that Yes, we are making progress in getting toxic toys and dangerous toys off store shelves, but clearly there are some that are falling through the cracks. And so it's very clear that more work needs to be done. And one thing that I'd like to add is, it's really important that we do share this information and that parents and caregivers are on the lookout for, potential problems. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to be a detective. You shouldn't have to worry that the toy you're giving a child might be toxic or dangerous. And that's why it's vitally important that regulators, policymakers, toy sellers, toy manufacturers do more to make sure that dangerous toys don't even make it into the hands of our kids.
And if I could just reiterate, I think because of the Cpsia, because of 33 years of PIRG's toy report, we have made great progress. We know that 750,000 products are stopped at the ports. We know that there are fewer toys that contain lead. We know that there's now required third-party testing for toys. This is all very important, but consumers still need to be vigilant. And there's more tools available now to help them be vigilant, such as saferproducts.gov, looking online to make sure the product that they own or considering purchasing has not been recalled. Really thinking about what fits in this choke test tube. Are they giving a toy to an older child who has younger siblings? So there's more tools, more information that consumers should use. But the bottom line is that the Cpsc, the United States, should be at the forefront for child safety. In some ways, we have made great progress, but in other ways, there's still a lot more work to do.
I also feel like it wouldn't quite be a U.S. PIRG Education Fund toy safety report without providing this tip that parents can use a standard-sized toilet paper roll as a choke test tube. So basically, if a toy or a loose part of a toy can fit in this, it's not suitable for children under 3.
On the role of parents in this, it seems like there's a sort of difference of kind between, say, a tainted slime or something. A parent doesn't have a lab in their house to test for boron levels, but at what point is it you have to leave it up to parent discretion? Like something like a balloon is a little bit closer on the other end of the spectrum, but where does there?
Let me just take this.
Yeah, I can too. Go
Sure.
ahead. Yeah.
I would say that parents should not have to be detectives. Most consumers assume that a product that is available for sale is safe. With the Cpsia, that paradigm is much closer to being true than it was before, but it's not always the case. So of course parents need to do research to make sure that they're picking the right product, but really toys should be designed for safety from the earliest stages before they enter a consumer's home.
Rich, I know as a mom, you probably know this, because of the popularity of slime, it's also spurred an online...
Do-it-yourself, yes.
What do you feel about the responsibility that manufacturers have?
So I think with slime, you're right, there's both, the mass market, ooh, that's sticky, the mass market where you could buy pre-purchased slime, and a robust market that my 9-year-old may or may not be making it at all times, of making it yourself. And I personally did research and said she cannot use borax. There are ways to make slime out of materials of lotion and glue that don't pose risks. So for do-it-yourself products, when anything is at your disposal, I think consumers should do some research to figure out how to make it as safely as possible. And there are ways to make slime without borax in it at all.
If I can also add, I wanted to add to, an answer to your question. Rachel is absolutely right. On the one hand, we shouldn't have to be detectives. We shouldn't have to worry. But as far as to recap some of the tips for that parents, precautions parents can take, at least for the toys that we've discussed today, real quick. So if we're talking about slime, watch your kids carefully when they're playing with slime. Call poison control if they ingest it, right? If we're talking about balloons, it's important to know that balloons are a choking hazard for children under 8. And so just keep uninflated balloons away from children. And we're not just talking about, whole balloons. It can be pieces of broken balloons as well that they can choke on. If we're talking about, small parts, again, you've got this at home, and if it fits, if the toy or a part of a toy fits in this, then you know that that's not suitable for kids under 3. If we're talking about, excessively noisy toys, then in that case, you would take the battery out. You might even consider just not having this in the home at all. And then if you're talking about smart toys, heed the FBI's, warning. Consider the cybersecurity and privacy risks of even bringing a smart toy into your home. So there are a number of things that parents can do, precautions they can take. Again, like Rachel said, there's also recalls.gov. You can go there and you can sign up for alerts for recalls. You can report unsafe toys at saferproducts.gov. So those, there are a number of things that you can do.
One point of clarification, you referenced the dropping number of product recalls. Is that to indicate standards or regulations becoming more lax, or that's a sign of improvement?
So I'm very cautious about drawing conclusions from recall rates. It's really hard to know why that is. There have been fewer recalls coming out of Cpsc this past year. It's very hard to know why. I don't know. I mean, there is a distinction of about 10 recalls. I think last year there were 28 recalls. This year there were 18. It's very hard to know what's causing that lower number, but I'm very careful not to say it's a sign of success because we don't know why that is. Are there significant changes in the market from this year to last year? It's unclear. Is it, action, a different level of action by the agency? What's causing it? We don't know. So I'm very careful not to draw conclusions one way or the other from that number, but it's definitely worthy of investigation, and we need to understand why that is.
The other thing that I'd like to add to that also is that of the recalls that took place within the last 12 months, that totaled over 2.7 million units. And another thing that we're calling for is actually a requirement that companies actually keep track of how many units are being returned to them. Because one of the concerns we have is that, it's important that recalled toys are no longer sold. But what if they're already in people's homes? And these recalls aren't necessarily reaching parents and caregivers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Any more questions?
One other thing I could do is I could just show you the power. So these are rare earth magnets. The issue arises, so this, is it going to work? Okay. This just tells you how incredibly powerful these magnets are. When a child, first of all, you can see how small they are. If a child swallows some, it's very hard to tell whether there are any missing. Some children and teens use these to mock a piercing in their nose or on their lip. And if a child swallows more than one of these, you see my finger is vastly thicker than stomach lining. And swallowing more than one of these can rip through stomach lining, causing very, very severe injuries, the need for extensive surgery, and more. And unfortunately, because the rule was struck down, we're seeing more of these coming onto the market, and we adamantly urge parents not to purchase these for children.
And those are the magnets that you've seen improperly labeled online?
No. No, this is a different issue. These are rare earth magnets. These are theoretically not sold. Originally, there was some ambiguity, but these are sold as adult products. These are not considered toys by the toy industry or others, and the toy standard actually has a very strong provision in the standard to ensure that hazards from strong magnets do not proliferate in toys. This is a different issue. These were originally sold as adult desk products, but many, many children got their hands on them. Many parents bought these for their children. They're sort of an interesting, innovative product. You can move them around, make shapes, but they are not intended for children, should not be in children's hands, and it's very hard to tell when any are missing, and the hazards are truly hidden, and the consequences of ingesting more than one are severe.
Great. Well, that concludes our 33rd Annual Toy Safety Report release. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yep.